Okay. Okay.
All right, welcome and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second SkillShop funding and grant writing. I'm the host today, Demishi Pai, and Ashley Young will be operating the slides for us today. Also joining us later on today will be Bruce Skinner, Executive Director for the Washington Festivals and Events Association, Mike Gomi with Pierce County. He's with the Economic Development Specialist in Tourism, and Wendy Tyner with Tyner Associates. Before I officially introduce myself, I should go over some housekeeping rules. This session will be recorded. We will also have all attendees muted. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session, so please make sure you are putting your questions in the Q&A. And also, at the end, you will receive an after-event survey that we would love for you to fill out so we can get some feedback and find out more about what you would like to see regarding the SkillShops. So like I said in the beginning, my name is Demishi Pai. I'm the Community Impact Coordinator for Tacoma Venues and Events. My key role is community engagement, and I am in the role of creating and cultivating partnerships with nonprofits, local school districts, colleges, universities, neighborhood association, tribal members, and civic leaders. I also support community engagement at the City of Tacoma, produced events such as the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration and City of Destiny Awards. The purpose of our SkillShops today is to provide tools and strategies to our community event leaders to enhance the success of community events. We do have some additional upcoming workshops, which will include a DEIA workshop, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access workshop. We will also have a marketing and sponsorship skill shop, as well as an emergency management skill shop as well. So those are some of our upcoming skill shops. Would love for you to join us when we have those. So thank you again for being here, and let's get started. Tacoma Venues and Events, some of you may be wondering, who is TVE? I've heard that. Tacoma Venues and Events manages and operates the Tacoma Dome, the Greater Tacoma Convention Center, Cheney Stadium, the historic Pantages Theater and Rialto Theater, along with the theater on the square. The department also includes City of Tacoma's Special Events Office.
Speaking of which, that's me. My name's Ashley Young. I'm the Special Events Coordinator for Tacoma Venues and Events in the City of Tacoma. And I oversee the City Events and Recognitions Committee, which does our special events funding. So what is our special events funding? Well, in 2021, TVE and the City Events and Recognitions Committee undertook the process of updating and providing city funds for community events in alignment with our council resolution 40622. Resolution 40622 affirms the City Council's dedication and commitment to comprehensive and sustained transformation of all the institutions, systems, policies, practices, and contracts impacted by systemic racism and initial priority given to policing in the City of Tacoma. Implemented in 2022 was the first funding cycle. This process focused on equity in the funding and ensuring diversity in the content of events, as well as the geographical representation throughout Tacoma's neighborhoods. Between 2021 and 2024, This funding opportunity has awarded $3,115,000 to 77 events representing all 5 council districts. The application is based off of 4 categories: equity and access, merit and need, community impact, and the capacity to produce the event. Funded organizations include nonprofits, businesses that are wanting to do a non-for-profit event, business districts, neighborhood councils, community groups, again, for-profit businesses hosting a not-for-profit event, educational institutions, and federally recognized tribe or native nonprofits. So here's a little bit of the requirements for our funding process. The event must take place within the city of Tacoma's city limits. The event must be free and open to the public. It will require a 1-to-1 match. That means for every dollar that you are awarded, you must also be able to provide some sort of in-kind cash, sponsorship, or donated amount in the same amount. So if you're awarded $1,000, you must be able to show that you can also have $1,000 in one of those types of services. The activities must be fully accessible to all audiences, including individuals with disabilities. The organizer acknowledges the city's funding, must acknowledge the city and Tacoma Venues Events in your promotional marketing materials. You agree to extend an invitation of either participation, tabling, attendance to your event in one way or another to the committee, and you must participate in the City of Tacoma's Green Events program. What are some examples of what your funding can be used towards? It can be used towards professional services such as hiring an event planner or producer. It can be used towards traffic control services, like traffic control plans if your road is in the public right of way. Stage management or performers, devices, signs, and barricades for your traffic control plan, off-duty police officers, certified flaggers, graphic designers, printing and advertising, social media, and then other miscellaneous items such as restrooms, hand washing stations, equipment, like children's playing items like inflatables or slides. And then it can also be used towards your permits and licenses that are required by various agencies, including the City of Tacoma. For our 2025 funding cycle, which is why I'm here today to talk to you about what we got coming up, we expect that to open in September of 2024. That's when our applications will open. The City Events and Recognitions Committee has been working really diligently on making our applications accessible to all cultural and people types, but we do require some information, such as the basic contact, whomever the president or the signee will be for your contract, the intent of the event, and the anticipated budget. We also do require location and date, at least a proposed location and date, understanding that events sometimes can change. We try to be flexible, but you do have to have some sort of idea of when and where it will happen. The proposed activities, and then you also may be required to provide specific documentation such as your nonprofit declaration or your business license. The awarded events should be announced either in October or November, and that would allow us to have contracting begin in January of 2025. For those who have not done the contracting process with the City of Tacoma before, just understand that that can be a lengthy process if you're not already in the system, but all of the funds are reimbursable funds. So they would only be distributed to you once the event is complete and your final reporting is submitted and has been approved. For that process, you'll need to submit a final report. You need to complete your budget estimates with your actuals, and then you submit an invoice to the City of Tacoma. There are some other funding opportunities that I wanted to just take a brief minute to talk to you about for events. This year will be the first year for 2025 that we roll out our City Event Services program. This is for eligibility, includes nonprofits, neighborhood or community-based groups, business groups, basically the same types of groups that we are asking to apply for event funding. There will be some limitations though on who can be awarded and who cannot be awarded. And there will be some variations of what will be allotted and what will not be allotted based off of the type of event. But essentially what this will allow you to be eligible for is use of our Tacoma services, such as the use of barriers, road closure signs, police personnel, and street operations personnel to deploy your traffic control plan. You'll be able to apply for it at the same time as our events funding program. And so that way you're not having to do two different applications. You're just doing an additional section if you would like to see if you're eligible for these services. Other funding opportunities include Tacoma Creates, the Green Events Program with Environmental Services, and the Community Arts Project funding. Both Tacoma Creates and Community Arts are through the Office of Arts and Cultural Vitality. And then there's some ones for more of the specific types of event asks, but can still be used for an event. So things that you would want to just maybe look at and consider is the Heritage Project grants. It supports projects that increase public awareness and access to Tacoma's history. The Make a Splash Fund, which supports projects that educate, protect, and restore our surface water resources in the Puget Sound. Neighborhood and Community Services funding, which is to improve livability, education, civic engagement, and equity. And these are for specific areas that include homelessness, household stability, civic participation, domestic violence, youth development, senior services, mental health, and substance use disorders. And then very specifically for the neighborhood business districts, I would look at the barricade relief funds that can reimburse you for any traffic control plans, devices, or signs that you may use for your event. And if you would like to ask more information about any of these particular funding pots, please reach out to me. My contact information will be provided to you, and I can connect you with the correct city staff person. And next, we have Bruce, and that's it for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. My name is Bruce Skinner. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington Festivals and Events Association, and we are the trade association for festivals and events in the state. We have over 400 members. Over 50 of them are in the greater Tacoma region. And we are an association, I think, that offers a lot of benefits. Number one is that we do a lot of events where people can come together and network and to learn. The great thing about our industry is, for the most part, we don't compete with each other. So our members are very, very willing to share ideas. And they do that at our virtual and in-person seminars and conferences. We have 9 regional chapters. One of them is Greater Tacoma. Each chapter meets at least in person twice a year, but in Tacoma's case, we have, because it is so active, thanks to the great efforts of Ashley and other people on the committee, but especially Ashley, we tend to meet more than twice a year. Again, we can share ideas. So right now you can join WFEA for only $95. And I assume, Ashley, we can get that information out to everybody, but regular dues are between $125 and $250, depending on your type of organization. But again, anybody can join for $95 now, and we'll get that information out to you. And I guess the big thing is that we will update you on all grant opportunities, whether they're local, whether they're countywide, whether they're statewide, whether they're federal. You know, that we all have very limited staffs, and so we don't have time to go out and look for grants are available. So we like to take that out of the equation for you. We will research these grants and get the information out to you, let you know what grants are available for festival and event organizers, when the deadlines are. Wendy Tyner, who you're going to hear from later, is doing a lot of work in this area for us. She's the chair of our WFEA Grants Committee and is a member of our WFEA Board of Directors. So we will get that information out to you going forward. When you join WFEA, just to let you know, you're joining 2 associations for the price of 1. So when you join the statewide association, you're also automatically free of charge a member of the Greater Tacoma Association chapter. You will receive a lot of benefits in addition to receiving grant information. And we send that out on a year-round basis of when grants come available so that you can apply for them. When we do these seminars, you will receive special member rates up to $100 discounts. So obviously, if you pay $95, the membership can pay for itself right away if you just attend one of those seminars. We do annual conferences, and the annual conferences are held twice a year. The next one is October 29, 30, and the morning of October 31st at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Bellevue. We will have 35 sessions. The sessions will include how to apply for grants, how to sell sponsorship, how to make money on food and beverage. And we have tracks for big and small events. So if you're a smaller event, you can learn from some of the best people in the state who produce smaller events. If you want to determine the economic impact of your event, we will have a new product coming on board, Economic Impact Calculator. Members will save hundreds of dollars in using the Economic Impact Calculator. We will also list your event dates on the State of Washington Tourism website. Thousands of people go to that website each year to find out what event that they should visit in the state of Washington when they're out traveling. And we will list your event in that listing free of charge. Again, just for members only. We have a WFEA library that's coming on board, books on sponsorship and production, how to raise money, all those types of issues. And members will receive special rates on WFEA library books. We have certification programs where you can become a certified live event planner. And we do a publication called Helping Hands. Your events will be listed. Again, there's a calendar of events that's published once a month in Helping Hands, which comes out twice a month. We also have WFEA member podcasts and a lot of ideas in that publication on how to produce and how to raise money and how to fund events. You can also win awards. We have an awards competition every year. Our WFEA annual awards dinner is held during the conference, our annual conference. And once again, that'll be on October 30 at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Bellevue. And that's it for me. I'll give you a few minutes back, Ashley. Mishi.
Thank you so much, Bruce. And like I said, everyone, at the end, we will have time for a Q&A. And up next, we have Mike.
Okay, I think I'm off of mute, and thank you, Mishi and Ashley. I can't believe we're still on schedule here, so that's great. My name is Mike Gomi, and I focus on tourism within the Pierce County Economic Development Department. I've been in the tourism space though for about 36 years, primarily in hotel management with brands like Marriott and IHG, most recently managing the Courtyard Marriott here in downtown Tacoma, although it's been a little while since I was there. But while I was doing that, I was pretty involved in the broader tourism industry, like participating in lodging tax advisory committees and regional tourism boards, and leading a couple of the DMO boards, both in Bellingham and Pierce County here. And DMO stands for Destination Marketing Organizations, for those who don't know that acronym. So like Travel Tacoma here in Pierce County, Visit Seattle up north. And Travel Tacoma, by the way, has recently had a name change to Tacoma Pierce County Tourism Authority. So if you see that, it's the same organization that we all love, Travel Tacoma. One of the more important things that I was involved with locally here from a tourism standpoint was helping to establish the Tourism Promotion Area Fund here in Pierce County. It's called the TPA. That was back in 2009, and that's about a $1.4 million fund that's similar to lodging tax fund, but it's historically gone to the DMO to help fund their marketing efforts. And I mention that just because I get a lot of questions about that fund and whether or not an organization qualifies for that. But again, it's reserved primarily for the county's DMO. So in my recent role here with economic development for the county, I'm essentially on kind of the other side of the ledger here as a grant administrator or a grant maker. Rather than helping to create and grow those funds as a previous hotelier, I'm now helping to dole out those funds from lodging tax and TPA. We have other people talking today who are much more knowledgeable about helping with general grant writing and such. But we just wanted to make sure you were all aware of some of the grant opportunities, in addition to learning tips and tricks on grant writing. I know Wendy will be really hitting the helping with the grant writing part of all this. So finally, that kind of brings me to my hook, which is that Pierce County has money. Pierce County has grant money for tourism-related events and other programs. We typically have a few $1 million available each year across all of our tourism categories, and we even have a separate fund for asset development projects, kind of brick and mortar projects, because those tend to have a little higher price tag. And I start with that because it's actually harder than it seems to spread the word about available funding. And by the way, I'm talking about the Pierce County Lodging Tax program here. Again, TPA is pretty much spoken for, and there are other lodging tax programs within the county that belong to individual cities, but we're talking about the Pierce County Lodging Tax program here. And one huge note that I just need to get out there because of timing, we do our grant process on a once per year cycle, and we do it very far in advance of the actual funding year, which has to do with the county budget process. Our grant application process recently closed for 2025, believe it or not, 2025 funding. So the next opportunity for our grant funding will be for the 2026 calendar year. And the application process will be starting in early March of 2025, about 8 months from now. The Pierce County Lodging Tax Program, if you're familiar with lodging tax programs, is a little different than other locations, even other cities within Pierce County that have their own. Ours is a little bit more strict. It has a fair number of restrictions and rules and requirements. We also divide ours up into different tourism categories, which I alluded to just a little bit ago, to make sure that we're not putting all of our eggs into, one tourism basket, if you will. So you can apply for dollars in the categories of leisure marketing, event marketing and operations, event development for new, starting up new events, sports event marketing, and then, like I said before, even sort of brick and mortar asset development type of projects, but you have to be a municipality. or represent one, like parks department within a municipality. And I've been specifying Pierce County lodging tax program, which suggests sort of all of Pierce County to some, and maybe just unincorporated Pierce County to others. But both of those are not technically correct. At its base, the Pierce County lodging tax program should be just for unincorporated areas of Pierce County. But there were some weird dates and deadlines in the state legislation that established lodging tax programs. And they just had some arbitrary deadlines, like 1997. And basically, if your city didn't establish its own lodging tax program by 1997, then your city would always be paying at least some of their lodging taxes to the county. That's in Pierce County, at least. And what that means is that those areas would actually be eligible for funding through the county system. So I'm going to try. So let me sort of summarize that a little better in a single sentence. The Pierce County lodging tax can be used in all areas of the county, except, it's easier to talk about the exceptions, except for Tacoma, Lakewood, Puyallup, Fife, and Gig Harbor. So those 5 cities had their act together prior to 1997 as far as lodging tax, their own lodging tax program. So they keep all their own money and do their own thing. Everywhere else pays into the county program, so it would be eligible. And here's kind of an important distinction or an important point about that. Your program or event must benefit lodging properties in one of those eligible areas, even if the event or program is taking place in an ineligible area. So for those who are familiar with Pierce County and Ruston Way and such, that's probably one of the better examples. We have a big, beautiful new hotel within the city of Ruston. It's the Silver Cloud Point Ruston, and lodging facilities in the city of Ruston are eligible. Lodging facilities, as I just said, in Tacoma are not. So an event can occur along Ruston Way within Tacoma city limits, but because the hotel in Ruston would be the closest and most likely beneficiary of that program, you know, of room nights from that event or program, the event would be eligible for Pierce County lodging tax dollars. So there's some, you know, intricacies in there that we sometimes need to just talk it out and work through if you're interested in this grant program. And if you're considering this fund for the future, 2026 or beyond, let me just quickly add in a couple of the requirements. I'm not going through all of them, and there are quite a few of them, but just sort of the main ones. Location, we just talked about that. It has to be in a location that benefits lodging facilities in an eligible area. Size of your event or program, it typically has to be large enough that it's beyond just a local event, or I should say an event that just locals attend. That's a better way to say it. There's nothing wrong with those hyper local events, but this fund is all about tourism. Target markets. From a very generic standpoint, whatever your target market is for your program or event, you would need to be advertising to that market at least 50 miles away from Pierce County, and really often even further out than that, to help ensure that you're going to get people staying overnight for your event or program. And that's key. That's key for this program. From a more specific standpoint on target markets, you'll want to make sure that you have a very good idea of what your target market is actually before applying to our grant program. We're pretty serious about applicants having that type of information and data about their program or event. And then the measurement results, I keep talking about this. This is all about tourism. and therefore overnight stays is really kind of the best and cleanest measurement of that. It's not the only measurement of tourism, but it's the one that we've decided to use for this program. And we have an expectation that your program or event will produce enough room nights that the hotel revenue coming in from them will be at least 1.5 to 2 times the amount that you're granted. And hopefully even better than that. We have partners that are, have a much higher ROI than even 2 times. We get a lot of questions about that, and so it really is looked at in this program as an investment. So if the amount of hotel revenue that's being returned is the same amount that's being granted out, the committee that looks at these feels that that's sort of spinning our wheels, right? They really do look at it as an investment. And then finally, I added that kind of last one, the tenor of the application, and I added this as perhaps my only piece of sort of generic grant writing advice, I guess. And that is that to make sure that you're doing enough due diligence in your grant writing effort, that you fully understand what the fund's goals are. As I've been speaking, ours is all about tourism and specifically generating overnight hotel room stays, and more specifically about generating a certain number of overnight stays, right? But it's also about supporting programs and events that are a good fit for Pierce County, and events that have a chance of becoming a signature event for Pierce County. It's things that happen during the off season or shoulder season when hotels really need the help, et cetera, et cetera. Some grants do a really good job of conveying those types of things, and some don't. So again, try to get in touch with the grant maker if possible, especially if the application is not very forthcoming on some of those details and such. Basically, do your homework. And that's all I have. So thanks very much, everyone. I think
wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate that. Next up, we have Wendy, the world of grants management. So we're going to dive in.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate being able to share my knowledge of 25 years of professional development. But I realized that I could talk about being 10 years old and selling the most Girl Scout cookies when I was young. So I think I started this profession younger than I even realized. Anyway, my name is Wendy Tyner, and my background has been a philanthropy director, a director of Friends of the Farms on Bainbridge Island, and I have practiced all parts of philanthropy, from grants management, planned giving, galas, campaigns, capacity building. Today, and you can move the slide forward, please. Today, what I would really like to talk about is, one more please, is a little bit of general practices, but also some very specific techniques and practices to use when you are submitting a grant application. Look at your organization to see why you're securing funds through a grant process. Make sure that your proposals are aligned with your own strategic plan, your budget, and if you have a philanthropy work plan. If you have that basis, it makes your job a lot easier. Determine if you need funding for sponsorships or general operations, or within your organization, where are your restricted funds and unrestricted funds going? This is critical to know this before you even start researching or looking for a grant. My golden retriever has to go on. Hold on. And then also, one of the reasons for securing funds through a grants process is when you're looking at your entire budget, you want to have funding coming from lots of different sources. So in the case of 2008, 2011, and then 2020, a lot of us lost funding because we relied too much on ticket sales. So if that happens again in our lifetime, which I hope it doesn't, you want to keep your organization sustained through those economic downturns. So if you have funding from other sources, that's important for the long-term benefits of your organization. Some of the other prerequisites is to really internalize your mission and internalize your value statement, because the grants you are seeking should be aligned with who you are too. And that is, I recently applied for a grant to Lululemon, and their funding is about wellness and about well-being. And so somewhere within your organization, how does that fit? And how are you unique? Most of the grants you will submit will ask about public benefit. They may use another word called impact or measurable outcomes, but how are you different from the others? And when you're writing a grant, even if they don't ask that question, be able to show how impactful the services you offer to people. If you're applying for a government grant, the term public benefit is a legal term, so you're required to respond to that question. And we'll get into detail in a minute. There's a document I want to share with you, if you don't mind going back for a minute. One back, please. I'll keep talking, but if you can go back. Is the Social Ventures Partner, it's called the Social Ventures Capacity Building Assessment Tool. That's one that we're sharing with you that you have received, and it may be online. 501 Commons offers the same kind of assessment tool. This is very important for you and your team and possibly board members to go through. It's divided into 8 or 9 sections, and it's all digital. And what you're going to do is evaluate who you are, and it calculates your responses and comes up with a number at the very end. So, for example, you'd be looking at board development, financial stability, fundraising, leadership, programs. And for example, for internal controls, stage 1, they go up to 4 stages. So for stage 1, it would say all your financial efforts take place in one room with one person. That's stage 1. I mean, phase 1 or stage 1. The stage 4 would be you have 3 or 4 people managing money. You have a bookkeeper, you have an accountant, you do an audit. And some of our organizations will never hit number 4 because we are small. But the strategy here is look at the terminology and the knowledge that you gain from this tool, because it's a full-blown comprehensive description of what a nonprofit should look like. So when it comes to writing measurable outcomes, I'll often pick, oh, we're at stage 2, we want to get to stage 3 in program development. And then when you go back to measure the grant that you received, then you have very, very clean and precise language about how you can evaluate your program. So the tool, I came from Wintergrass Music Festival. I was there for 20 years. It's a music festival that was in Tacoma for 16 years. And then we moved up to Bellevue. We use this tool as a guiding light for our strategic plan. Okay. Who are you? Are you the one writing the grants? Are you the one having to seek support for your organization? This is research-based. These are the characteristics that you or whoever is writing the grant should have. And if you are this person, that's wonderful. If you are not this person, seek someone out within your organization. It could be a board member, it could be staff, it could be a volunteer. And think about the value of thinking globally. I love the one that says having unrealistic expectations. I certainly am that. And sometimes you need someone to say, you know, that's a great idea, Wendy, but it really doesn't fit into who we are. Think about all the things on the right side of how are you thinking beyond the next 3 or 6 months. Think about the long-term benefits of your organization, of how this grant might help you. Okay. So this is a tool I look at a lot. A lot of these numbers come from USA Giving, and they offer an annual review on where the funds are going. And what may apply to you may be arts and culture and humanities or human services. But what you need to see is where you fit into where funds are going. So because of Ukraine and because of what's going on in Israel, this order has changed. Religion has always been at the highest. The last few years, it has changed. So let me explain some of the numbers. So for example, international affairs went up 10%, but because of inflation, they actually went up another 2%. That's a minus. They went down 2%. Go down to arts and culture and humanities. That one was the best. It went up 2%, but because of inflation, it continued to go up. Right now, if you are in the arts and culture and humanities category, you have a much better chance of getting a grant, unless if you compare it to education or human services. Going down to the bottom, even though corporations were able to have an increase of 3.2, it has a net loss because of inflation. So it was a minus 4.2. Don't let that discourage you from applying for sponsorships through corporations or corporate foundations. It's just perspective for you to see where the funding comes from every year. Same thing with individuals. It did go up, but then because of inflation, it went down. And that was for 2023, I should say. For 2024, individual giving has now skyrocketed. And this is what happened in 2008, 2011, and now. We had these terrible economic downturns, and then right after they skyrocketed. And some of that can be attributed to everything you've done in the past. So when we have a period of time where you don't believe you're going to be getting funding, there is a natural inclination to ask for money. Oh my gosh, we're not going to make our budget. Well, that might be true. But think about donor stewardship, which we'll talk about in a minute, is the more you can be communicating with your existing donors and educating them and informing them and involving them, you have a great likelihood of their giving after that economic downturn. Right now, this may not relate because we're moving up a bit, but if you're in the field for the next 10 or 20 years, please remember that during these times, just keep people engaged because they will eventually come back to donate. So this is an important message for you. Think about the people you work with. They're going to go after money. They're going to go in for the kill. They're going to schmooze. They're going to hit people up. Take those words and consider a paradigm shift and think about the people that you're asking for money for. Invite them into the organization. Offer them a position in becoming a volunteer or a board member. How can you collaborate with them? Think about everyone you ask for money as a partner. And the reason that this is important is I've met with a number of people, including Mimi Gates and Sonia Campion, and they often say they're just not a wallet. This is now old fashioned, but they say we're not just a credit card or a wallet. We want to be invested in your organization. If we're going to give you money, we really want to know what's going on. So if this is you, think about how you can change the words, in the next year of that you're not going to schmooze, but you're going to invite people into your organization. Okay. So there's the next 3 slides are starting to talk about where you can receive funding. Government sources is one of them. And I sent a document to you that lists probably 40 more sources that are mostly corporate grant opportunities. These are some of the government grant opportunities that you have. It is not limited to this. So thankfully, we heard a little bit more from City of Tacoma on what's offered for you through those organizations. These are other organizations that are available outside of the City of Tacoma. The financial support could be anything from sponsorships to capacity building and even heritage building. When you go online, try to become a recipient of their e-news, because most of these organizations will be able to tell you when their grants are due. Some of the grants are ongoing, so you have to look that up as well. Okay. These are tried and true. That document that I sent to you, I know offer some kind of grant opportunity to you. Look at the list here. These are ones that I know that you might want to consider. But also think about your gift acceptance policy. Do you want their logo or their name on a Jumbotron? Is their organization aligned with your audience? And if you don't have a gift acceptance policy, I'd be happy to send you a couple of them. This will help you decide, do you want to put Coca-Cola or Budweiser or even marijuana as a sponsor? Do you want to have, I can't think of one outside this area right now, but some of these, some people don't want big car dealerships part of your logo. So that's just something to know from your team, if that's something to apply for. Okay. And then finally, of these 3 sources, foundations are very, very essential to be part of your funding, because a lot of them can sustain you over time. So if you talk to Seattle Foundation, they have donor advised funds. So there are people individually that have a desire to support a lot of organizations. Some place like the Seattle Foundation also has separate grants that you can apply for. Renton Community Foundation may be in Renton, but it has a wide footprint. I'm sure most of you know about Greater Tacoma. Yeah, please check in with them. Corporations, there are 29 tribes within the state, so look into those. And then as you get to know your board members, think of the concentric circle. Think about the people that are your board members, even your staff and your volunteers. All of them are folks that probably have additional resources for you to look into to help support who you are. Down below are a number of websites and various meetings that you could attend. Please go to those and also become a recipient of their e-news. Joy at Corporate Giving offers resources once a month. And if you're not a member, you should be, but if you're not, it's also $30 for some of these monthly meetings. And they're worth their weight in gold, because she'll have Alaska Airlines and PSC and AT&T and Toyota show up, and they'll give you the exact criteria for what you need. And then the other 2, the Hunter and Apollo is I don't know if any of you can afford it, and I've never worked in an organization that can, but they offer a long list of resources that you can just go right to, rather than you and I doing all the legwork that we typically do. Okay. Okay, so the next set of slides is really about what do you do prior to submitting a grant proposal, what goes into the grant proposal, and then what do you do afterwards. So there is a mistake that people make a lot is they see grant opportunities, so they start applying for them one after another, and they have so many. This would be a good thing. So many grant awards, that's great. But how do you care for them afterwards? How do you report to them outside their legal requirement? Here we go. Hold on. I'll have to have you meet Isla, the golden retriever, at some point. So think about how you're going to report to them, who's going to do the reporting, and can you do it in a genuine way? Because as we'll talk about later in donor stewardship is, and I'll say this more than once, is your best report is your easiest ask. You know, the more you can interact with folks and invite them to events and have them part of your organization, then you're able to write that second proposal in the next year. So just be careful about overextending yourself. We just talked about a concentric circle. That's the easiest place to start. And then when you're looking for funding, you have to be talking to your director, your program directors, and anyone else that runs the programs. Where is the best place for you to be asking for funding? And it's a little bit of collaboration on both sides. You're pulling up grants, and that there's one on video protection, but you don't even know if you need video protection support. So that's when you're talking to your staff and board members to find out from them. And I wouldn't say this is done in an organized, comprehensive way. Sometimes it's opportunistic when you see some of the grants that come up. And at the bottom, I've written, regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you noticed, I didn't write DEI or JEDI or DEIF. I really promote using words rather than acronyms. In this case, it's really important that the people that we're supporting as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion deserve to hear these words, because the terms themselves is a way to promote and market who you are. And it's also to give respect to the people that we're supporting. Okay. So how are you cultivating a new grantor? Who are your prospects? Definitely talk to the people that are closest to you. I'm reiterating this because it's important to know from your closest people who we can be talking to receive a grant from. And then when you see that there's a grant out there, get to know whoever is supporting it. Talk to the ED, talk to the philanthropy people, bring them closer into your fold. Develop any relationship you can with the people that would be offering the money. I personally like talking to the admin people. Sometimes it's the clerk, the secretary, the assistant person who you might be talking to. Get to know them because they have a team just like you have a team. Attend events as much as you can. And when you do that, you're getting to know who they are. You're getting to meet funders that might be at this event. Always follow up with them, send an email, send a small card, a small greeting card to them, thanking them that you got to meet with them. Review their annual reports. I spend a lot of time reviewing annual reports because I want to know who the organization is. And when you sit down with these folks, know what their interests are. Invite them to your organization, have coffee with them, include their colleagues if you can. I suspect that, no, not yet. Okay, I suspect a lot of you do these things. So as you're listening to these recommendations or best practices, think about what you already do. Affirm what you already do. Consider adding a few things more. You know, it's difficult to do everything, but if you can just add one more thing, and the one I would prioritize here are two, there's two: informing, involving, and then investing. Demishi, I'm not going to ask you to give $1 million to Wintergrass Music Festival. Not yet, not yet. But I will inform you about Wintergrass. I will involve you. I'll take you to Wintergrass. I'll give you a backstage tour. I'll invite you to the receptions. And you know what? I may not even ask you tomorrow. I may not even ask you in a month from now. But eventually, as I move a potential grantor, you know, at that point, then it's time to ask them to consider investing in your organization. I love the what's in the blue box. Today is not a great example of this because I'm doing all the talking. So it might be that I do all the talking, but you're going to remember 30% of what I say. That's all. That's all. But if you do the talking, you're going to remember 70% of what you say. And the reason this is important is if you go out to lunch or have coffee with people, don't do all the talking. Ask open-ended questions. Allow them to talk about their organization and keep it conversational. You talk a little bit, they talk a little bit. But the way I would do it is sometimes I'll say, you know, what was tell me about your last arts event that you attended. And if I know they've gone to an event like Wintergrass, you know, tell me about when you visited Wintergrass. Just lead them into answers that will help support what you're doing. Okay? Cultivation, by the way, can take months. So just be aware that you want to spend a lot of time with those folks. So we talked a little bit, we've already talked about a lot of this. So when you send, when you look, let me back up. Most of you know what SOAR is. SOAR has been replaced, I mean SWOT. Most of you know what SWOT is, but it's been replaced with SOAR. Successes, opportunities, aspirations, and results. This is something you would do at the board level or your staff level. And when people did SWOT, the last acronym letter is threats. That was confusing, and it's really not a good word to talk about what threats that you have that affect your organization. So when you think about one of the first slides I said about prerequisites, when was the last time you did a full assessment of who your organization is? That's one tool to use, is SOAR. When you're meeting with people, think about the subject line that you've put in the email. You're invited is just really nice and it's easy. Putting in 7 words or less is research-based. So think about what you put in there. We get so many emails. You've got to put something in that subject line that's compelling for them to want to open your email. Always meet either on a neutral turf or someplace that's easy for them, even if you have to drive further than you want. Just make it convenient for your grantor. I think the articulating your message is important. Sharing 3 to 5 initiatives is something I always do, if appropriate. So if you're going to go to Boeing, you would present 3 to 5 initiatives that you're working on. And these are critical because you don't know what they're interested in. You're doing this long before you write a grant because you don't want to write a grant and find out that that's not something they support. And then, of course, you're going to find out if they want sponsorship benefits. So you would know that before you go into it. Know their criteria. And Mike, you did a great, or was it Mike or Ashley? Both of you talked about what is the criteria. I know some people go into the writing without doing enough research. And then as a result, they end up being denied. So really know what their criteria is. Some of them want to know about marginalized communities. Some of them want to know about diversity, equity, inclusion. If they don't, I suspect you serve a wide range of people anyway. Just be sure that you write your proposal that includes that information. Okay, next. The actual completing the grant, there's a lot of meat here. I read a lot of grants. I'm on a committee in Nashville, and I read about 30 grants a year. And if you can be on a grant committee, that will help you write grants. Read the instructions, answer the questions. Sometimes a question will have 3 parts to it. Go back to the questions multiple times and make sure you write the question, because what you don't know is if each question has, some grants have 100% of a number, and in that 30% may go to, 30% might go to question number 1. Another question may be worth 40%, and then the next one might be worth 30%. You want to answer all the questions, but it's really critical that the one with 30 and 40% you've invested the most time in. Just to be simple, the way I do it is I pull up the questions, I make a Word document, I then write notes of what I believe should go into that section that may not be asked. Then I create my narrative within my Word document. At that point, then the draft gets sent to someone to review, hopefully more than one person. Then I put it into the actual cyber grant format. If you have 3 sets of eyes, that's really critical, because they will not only pick up grammatical errors, they may want to add something that you don't know. If you have an audit, a strategic plan, or advisory committee, a lot of times your grants don't ask those questions. Be sure to include that, because that shows your strength. It shows that you're forward thinking. And I'll repeat it again, follow the instructions. Use compelling words. Think about how transformational your organization is at this moment. Use the words increase, foster, expand. The reader could be someone that is looking, because I think of head, heart, and soul. They may be head persons, so they may want financial numbers, and they might like metrics. Think about the heart person. They want to know how you're affecting humanity. How are you really benefiting the community? Or soul, it's just all encompassing. What you're doing is just a great thing for our community. So you want to make sure you're using a variety of words to meet the needs of the reader. Going back to, did you answer the question properly? I often bring up when you were founded. Sometimes the initial document of a grant might ask when you were founded. If it hasn't, make sure you put it in. And if you have a creative arts district in your community, which I think Tacoma does, include that. And then quotes from recipients, quotes from attendees, quotes from board members. Maybe there's a volunteer. Maybe there's someone from your education program that just really valued what you offered. I don't use their last name unless I've gotten their permission. And then I helped someone write a grant recently who lives back east. She had all the information that was just, the narrative was great. She didn't put it in the right sections. So I spent hours taking her language, but making sure it answered the questions in which they asked. Measurable outcomes. This is probably the most difficult part of your grant application. You can use numbers like you're going to increase attendees by 4%. If you do something like that, make sure you have a baseline. Make sure you can meet these measurable outcomes. You can also use measurable outcomes that are more affective, that you'll receive reports from your attendees or from your students. As long as you can evaluate who you are, that's what a grantor is looking for. Okay. How many times should you thank an organization? 3 times or more, but 3 times. But it might come from you. It might come from a board member. It might come from your executive director. You can never thank enough. But in another slide, we'll talk about being genuine. Have you gotten a birthday card from your dentist? You know, why waste the paper? It might be good for marketing, but make sure your thanks and your words of gratitude are very genuine. You can also make a certificate that they can frame. I've seen some done on rice paper that are beautiful. I've seen some that are as big as a poster that acknowledges the organization for their humanitarian efforts. Write letters to the editor in your local paper, thanking the sponsors, thanking them, thanking foundations, thanking them for how they have supported you. You probably have someone that is your social media person. Make sure it gets posted on Facebook. If you have an event, honor these people at your event. You know, this is a long list of things that you can do. Try to do them all, but if you can't, one of the last things I'm going to say is do what's easy well. So sending them a handwritten card is really easy for you to do. It's so easy, and it has such an impact on the person or the organization that is giving you funding. I start my morning and I end the day writing a thank you. And I do this almost every day. It is so, it's really good for your own soul to start that way, to be giving gratitude to people. It makes you so aware of who the people are who are supporting you. If you're going to send birthday cards or get well cards, you know, they're people you know that you feel that you can send that card out. If you start sending them out to people that you don't know well, it's not genuine. If you have a donor management system, be careful what you write. I put a lot of notes in our donor management system, but if someone has told me their son or daughter had died from suicide or they're in AA, I don't include that information. Because you never know what's going to happen with your particular document and who might read it. So if you're thinking about the head person opposed to heart, when you're writing certain thank yous, like if you've applied for money through the Port of Seattle, it's all about metrics. They just want to know the number of people, the number of times you sent out Facebook posts, what was the gross and what was the unique word finding hold on. If you're using so sorry, wish we had people that could talk right now. Oh, there it is, the unique and gross click-throughs. Make sure that you use that if you have it. And of course, the impact you're having on people, you know, be very, very specific and let them know how you've affected people, okay? We just talked about that. I spend a lot of time patronizing businesses so that if I know a certain business is giving some kind of support to me, I frequent their store. I support them as much as I can. Okay.
Then real quick, Wendy, we've got about 5 minutes.
Thank you. Reporting, as I said earlier, the more reporting you can do makes the best reporting makes the easiest grant award acceptance. One of the things you can do is pick up the phone. I know this is now becoming not a typical practice, but call someone and tell them that I just want to tell you that, you're giving us, $5,000 has really made a difference. I was able to buy an instrument for one of our students. I was able to, whatever the grant says, make sure you respond to whatever your proposal was. I leave a lot of recorded messages because people don't pick up the phone sometimes. That's fine. If you going back to thanking them, sometimes their phones are on recording, and when I thank them, I also remind them I'm not asking you for additional support. I just want to reach out and thank you for everything you've done for us. Okay. Oh, I don't, hold on, go back, please. One more. On the third bullet, the third bullet talks about reporting to people for 10 years. This is research-based. That think about the organization that you've asked for money for this past year. It took you a lot of time to get to know that business, that foundation. You had to get to know the people and say they give you an award. The second year, you'll spend less time. Third year, you'll spend even less time than that. By year 10, it's more cost efficient to have the same people supporting you than it would be to get new people year after year after year. And that's something you have to remember, because every time you try to acquire a new supporter, it's taken you a long time. And going back to grant writing, any grant that I write can take 6 hours to up to 17 hours to write. And that is because you might have to acquire documents you don't have. You're getting people to review your draft. Recently, I wrote a grant and I needed letters of support. But I wrote the letters of support, sent them to the person, and then they signed it. They read it. They've endorsed us. But to ask for people to write letters of support in today's world is difficult because everyone's so busy. So that particular grant took 17 hours because I was generating new documents. But now I can use those documents for future grants. Okay, next slide. We're on the home stretch. That's what I just said. It's more cost effective to keep your sponsors and your grantors in your pocket and close to you. Keep them close to you. They want to be part of your organization. And then if you can, follow up with them and find out if their support benefited them. And you'll learn a lot from them as you turn around to write a new grant proposal. Okay, next one. I think we've talked about this. Next one. This is the last slide. Think about and prioritize these bullets. If you want to do anything, make sure you diversify your income. Plan for the year. Have a calendar that shows all the deadlines for submitting a grant and when to write a report. Meet people in advance. Know the criteria. And thank people. Think about when you're thanked. It's a lovely thing to feel when people thank you. Report. And then again, do what's easy well. So when I pull up a grant, they want certain documents attached. I often attach those ones right away because first of all, that's easy. But anything that you can do, in the next year easily, just do it well. It will make a huge difference in the future of your own profession. That's it. One more slide. And that's the first picture was little Owen, and that's little Jack. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Wonderful, Wendy. Thank you so much. Now we have time for Q&A. My colleague Gerald has been watching the Q&A. Gerald, do we have any questions that any of our panelists can answer?
Yeah, the first question I think is for Bruce. Someone asked, can a newly started neighborhood council with a very low startup budget, can we get a waiver for the first year of membership fees?
Yeah, I think we can work something out. Send me an email at bruce@wfea.org.
Ashley, your hand is raised.
I will say that this isn't the first time somebody has approached Bruce about working with them on their membership fees. And I have two things to say. First of all, the fees are incredibly low. For anybody who's ever been a part of other event organizations or associations where you're a member, the fees are in the hundreds of dollars just for a basic. And WFEA has done such a great job of keeping their fees as low as possible. And then secondly, him and his team have worked with so many organizations or event producers on ways for them to be able to afford joining. I mean, the amount of information that you learn from being a WFEA member and the networking, the access is really, really valuable. And so thanks, Bruce, for always being flexible with us and our event partners on being able to participate, because the presence of them is very valuable also.
Yeah, and actually what we do is we don't necessarily comp the membership fee. However, we can delay it.
Cool, thank you. And then another question is we have, and I believe this is just open for anyone, is what is the diversity plan for these agencies that presented today?
And then I had a question on that, and Kay Clement was the one who asked that, and I just want to let you talk real quick. Clay, if you could, or Kay, if you could expand on what agencies you're talking about. Are you talking about the city of Tacoma, Pierce County, etc., or were you talking more about the types of organizations that were being described? We'd appreciate just some clarification there. And if Kay, you're not able to speak, or maybe that's not the method that you want to take, I will say for City of Tacoma, our council did just go through a few years ago that resolution process. And that's been really a guiding force for our funding when it comes to our department. The resolution 40622 is something that we constantly evaluate. We make tweaks every year to our funding process, because we improve each time, we learn more and we get better. But that's kind of what continues to steer us, is that resolution from council. And I'm sorry, Kay, if you're there, but
yes, I am. I apologize. My computer audio was muted, not just here in the microphone. So yes, I just want to say thank you, Ashley, for recognizing us. We did receive special events funding to do a military art market. So we are a veteran, BIPOC, 501c3 organization. And we have applied for other funding to support this military art market. And it has been challenging with seeing some of the past recipients in a lot of these different funding pools. So that's why I asked about the diversity plan, because we are seeing lack of diversity in these realms. And so we wanted to know, like with the Washington State Festivals Organization, what does that look like for them? What does it look like for some of the Office of Tourism as well? We've applied for funding with them before with this year, and we never even received a letter, determination letter, until after I checked and seen, oh, well, here we are. We have seen the organizations that have already been chosen. and we've seen most definitely, just lack thereof with some of the investment to some of the smaller organizations that are very resilient and ambitious to get to the next stage. So, I mean, it's almost to the point where, like you just said, Ashley, I think some of these plans, some of these things that are kind of set need to be re-looked at and maybe adjusted. I know there's a process and policy that goes involved with that, but we were just kind of saying, hey, we're in 2024. Maybe we need to kind of look into some of these diversity plans, or what are the diversity plans, and maybe take some of these things to the legislative level and say, hey, this isn't working anymore. Maybe we need to make some more adjustments and create some more opportunities for organizations to apply for. So that's kind of where I meant by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Did anybody else want to comment on what Kay had for us here?
Well, from a Pierce County standpoint, I just want to make sure that she wasn't referring to the Pierce County lodging tax program, because we haven't said no to anyone in years, unless they're actually ineligible from a what type of organization can apply. We don't have a specific diversity plan for our fund, for the lodging tax fund, but the overarching Pierce County government diversity plan would apply, and I am not qualified to speak to that.
Thank you, Mike.
Anyone else have a comment or feedback for Kay?
Ashley, I will say that at our annual conference, we have a couple different DEI sessions. One is put on by an outside person who is an expert. Karen Foster is her name, and that will be on October 31 at the annual WFEA conference. And we also have a DEI panel, diversity, equity, inclusion panel on Wednesday, October 30th at the annual conference. And it will be included also, we're hoping, Ashley, to include the Tacoma DEI toolkit in our publication that we're developing right now, and it'll be published in September.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that, Bruce. I will say that one of the directives we've received from council is to create an equity toolkit specifically for events. And so our office is working closely with the Office of Equity and Human Rights right now on creating a DEIA, so Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access toolkit for event organizers to use. Our hope is that it will allow you to have some tools in the planning process that are around those 4 categories and more, and that you can use it as a takeaway for your organization. We will be doing a SkillShop on that and releasing that in mid-August. So please continue to follow TVE for the announcement of the date. I believe we're looking at August 19th right now. And so that's something that I think will be really beneficial, not just for events, but I can see that being used in bigger scopes of work for organizations to do some equity planning in their own way. We're hoping to have like a checklist of things just to consider. Have you looked at this, and ways that your board or your volunteers can be informed and educated on equity and access planning? And so it's a really entangled topic, and there's a lot of aspects and elements to it. And it's complicated, and sometimes it's intimidating. Like I even myself will admit that I feel intimidated speaking to these things because maybe they aren't necessarily coming from me. So we're really working on connecting with different groups that experience access challenges or equity challenges, and getting their perspective on it so that we can incorporate as much, not just from our centralized knowledge base, but from an expanded knowledge base in our community, on what that would look like for them. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Ashley. Please sign us up for that. And thank you, Bruce. We're going to be looking into getting a membership with your organization and being at that conference on the 31st. We just wanted to know October 31st. So can we dress in costumes for Halloween?
Well, at our awards dinner the night before, you can dress in costumes anytime, but there will be costume prizes given at our awards dinner, which is Wednesday night, the 30th. I'll also say that the conference is going to end at noon on the 31st because we want everybody to be able to get home to enjoy Halloween with their youngsters.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for your question, Kay. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the questions and answers. I mean, from this webinar. So back to you, Demishi.
All right. Well, for those of you that did not put anything in the Q&A, that is all right. All of our panelists will have their information available to you. This skill shop and the information that some of our panelists have provided will also be available on the TVE website as well. And so we encourage all of you to go and check out that information, the information that's provided, and to also sign up for the next skill shop, which is the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access skill shop, which will be more of a roundtable setup for us. So I appreciate all the panelists today, and I appreciate all of you who attended and took the time to spend with us today. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Until next time, thank you so much.